been done there, but of recent we've had quite a few noises which indicate that the government may be interested in closely looking at what people are doing online, and if it is not to the liking of the government, action might be taken against those individuals. But it's not only the government, and I want to relate an example of something that happened in Tororo district about 5 months ago. There was a guy, I think he's a vector control officer in Tororo district. They had bought, I think, drugs for animals. There was a budget for buying drugs for animals and carrying out vaccinations against one of the diseases. But the chairman and other people claimed they had actually done that, but they had not. Instead, they had misappropriated the money. So this guy puts that on his Facebook page, on the wall. Say, you know, the livestock sector is suffering, and the district people claim they bought the drugs, they didn't. What happened is that the district chairman went to the police and had this guy arrested and imprisoned. This happened this year. The illustration there is that the threats are not only going to come from the police, they are not only going to come from communication regulators or other duty bearers at the national level, they are also going to come very much from small players in all sorts of distant places. And once there are indications at the national level that we want to take action, then the people at the districts are also going to be emboldened to take action against those who express themselves online, as happened in that case which we just referred to. So we want to do research. We are doing research in a couple of countries in collaboration with the researchers based in those particular countries. We are developing a couple of informational resources. We are doing meetings, this being the very first one, which is really sort of exploring the terrain and coming up with the issues that we need to be addressing in the subsequent meetings. And then, of course, here also, something which will come out is the training needs. What kind of constituencies do we think need to be trained? And what are the areas in which we think training is mostly needed? The other component which we want to hear about and which we want to take away from here is on a general area of advocacy and awareness raising, because as much as we'd like to create skills among users and among human rights defenders and journalists and bloggers, it is also important that the duty bearers such as regulators and members of parliament and others are also aware of what is happening, are aware of that internet rights are human rights and need to be protected like the other rights have always been protected. So that comes with a component of awareness raising and advocacy. And there again, that's something which this meeting very much would like to hear your views on. Those are my few comments. Today, we had expected Margaret Sekaja. She's the former chairperson of the Uganda Human Rights Commission, and she's the head of the Human Rights Center, and the UN Rapporteur Special Representative on Human Rights in Africa. They have a training today, a big training, so she couldn't make it. We are also engaged with the Human Rights Network of Uganda, who should be here, but they are launching a report also on 101 questions you want to know about the Uganda police. Very interesting report, very big occasions. So because of those two occasions, we were not able to, as of now, have the involvement of the Human Rights Center and the Human Rights Network Uganda. But among the organizations which we want to engage in this activity, because we do not want the area of the internet rights to be restricted to only people who are involved in this area, like bloggers and journalists and people involved in the ICT world. We want it to be mainstreamed with the general work that is promoting human rights traditionally. And so you will be seeing them in the subsequent meetings which shall be having. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it. I think it's been elaborate and everything we've been doing. We realize that of late, everyone is under threat, especially if you're talking about governance. Democracy is no longer that as we know it. Not only in Uganda, but around the whole world, including the US. Snowden is on the run. The WikiLeaks guy is also on the run. And in Uganda, we've had a number of people who are also in that category. Many of you know Kanyekia is actually still having a case. He published his article online in 2010. And the case has been dragging on since it's still in court. And the question is, he published some information that is likely to incite public cause hatred. So the question is, do you publish online or what do you do? And our laws are a bit archaic. They are still backwards. They couldn't know. The definition within was publication is made in the print. Now we have electronic publications. How do you deal with such? And then when we can move to privacy, and the threats that people are facing while online. Though little and little is being done. And as we actually seeing that many expression platforms are being clamped down. Yeah.
3 4G LTE network licenses were issued in mid-2012 through the firms that have yet to deploy the high-speed data transmission. And please note this is between May 2012 and April 2013. Meanwhile, the quality of both voice and data services remains low. While increasing market competition has continued to drive down internet access rates, particularly on mobile phones, the cost of internet-enabled devices is still high for the majority of Ugandans who make an average monthly income of $100, according to the latest data from Uganda Bureau of Statistics. But I think recently MTN increased the data prices, the mobile data prices, so that will be captured, I guess, next year. Prohibitive tax regimes remain in place despite successful moves by Uganda's neighbors to remove duties on the importation of hardware and software. Most recently, in 2013, the government launched an effort to curb the importation of counterfeit mobile phones, which further limits the access to mobile technologies. All inactive counterfeit phones were rendered unusable as of January 31st, while fake phones were pre-existing subscriptions were to be disconnected beginning July 1st. There are no figures to indicate how many users have been and will be affected by this initiative. The 2009 ban on importation of used computers remains in place. Another impediment to increased internet usage is limited access to electricity. The National Electricity Distributor reports a customer base of just 450,000 people, most of whom are located in urban areas. Telecom providers and Seco Marine Fibers are also hooked to TIMS, the East African Marine System, and Seco Marine Fibers through Kenya. Connection with these fibers has led to an exponential growth in Uganda's international bandwidth, which has decreased the cost of internet access, along an increasing demand for data services and high-speed internet. Service disruptions and slow internet speeds are common, however, due to frequent repairs. Over the past few years, the government has embarked on initiatives to improve rural connectivity, and a national ICT policy was finalized in 2010 to facilitate the proliferation of ICTs across the country in both rural and urban areas. Nonetheless, the national ICT sector budget allocation comprises less than 1% of the national budget. Since 2007, Uganda's ICT ministry has been developing the national data transmission backbone infrastructure, which aims to ensure the availability of high bandwidth data connection in all major towns at reasonable prices. The project, now under the provision of the National Information Technology Authority, involves the installation of over 1,500 kilometers of fiber optic cable and related equipment. However, the more than 100 million project has been dogged by contractual problems, government red tape, delayed funds, and unverified allegations of inferior equipment and work as of mid-2012. The Chinese company, Huawei Technologies, contracted for the installation, has been accused of using substandard cables and in some cases, wrong cables. The government has also embarked on a project to establish computer centers in all its educational institutions across the country, with a plan to cover at least 1,000 institutions by the end of 2012. In addition, the Rural Communications Development Fund was established in 2001 with the aim of providing access to basic communication services within a reasonable distance to all Ugandans, leveraging investments for rural communications and promoting overall ICT. The fund further supports the establishment of internet cafes, internet points in rural areas, ICT training centers, and web portals for local government districts. UCC, the Uganda Communications Commission, Uganda's telecom sector regulator, is mandated to independently coordinate, facilitate, and promote the sustainable growth and development of ICTs in the country. UCC also provides information about regulatory process and quality of service, and it issues licenses for ICT infrastructure and service providers. There is a general perception, however, that the comprehensive and coherent information about the Commission's operations is not always accessible, and that the body is not entirely independent from the executive arm of the government. In addition, UCC's current executive director has been regarded as overzealous in his efforts to police and rein in operators, illustrating how the personal character of the regulatory authority's leadership can in large measure determine its activities and regulations. In September 2012, the Uganda Parliament passed the Uganda Communications Act 2012, which consolidated the provisions of the 1996 Electronic Media Act and 2000 Uganda Communications Act, and merged the UCC and the Uganda Broadcasting Council into the body, the Uganda Communications Regulatory Authority. The new body has been criticized for its lack of independence from government. In particular, the law places disproportionate power in the hands of the ICT minister, who will have the authority to approve the new regulator's budget and appoint members of its board with approval from the cabinet. There is no independent mechanism in place to hold the regulator accountable to the public. While the new law provides for the creation of the Uganda Communications Tribunal, which is an appeals body with powers of the High Court, its membership and advice. The government has also begun to embrace social media platforms as a channel for public engagement, as illustrated by Uganda's Prime Minister and the Uganda Media Center is also on there. We have a few government officials like the Polo who now reply to concerns. But while there is no evidence of government efforts to influence or manipulation of any content, previous shutdowns of media houses seen as critics of the government, in addition to reports of attacks on journalists by the National Police, and other routine threats by the government, have engendered a culture of censorship among journalists, both off and online. Key topics include the military, the president's family, issues of oil, land grabbing, and controlling power. ensure that the platforms are not spreading dangerous information only to describe what's still terrorism. In the recent years, government critics and opposition political parties have taken to the internet as a platform for political debate and an informal means of disseminating information to society. Crowdsourcing and crowd-mapping tools have given citizens the ability to monitor elections, and the diversity of civil society groups are increasingly using SMS and social media platforms and to call for protests. In addition, blogging is on the rise among young Ugandans who are less fearful in their use of the internet as an open space. On violations of user rights, SIM card and mobile internet registrations continue through 2013 amid concerns that the registration requirements infringe on the right to privacy, given the lack of unnecessary data protection law. Government harassment for online writing was documented while suspicions of proactive government surveillance of online communications increased in the past year, with one unconfirmed case involving the interception of a private email reported by an LGBT rights group in early 2013. The Uganda Constitution provides for freedom of expression and speech in addition to the right to access information. However, several laws, including the Press and Journalists Act, the Anti-Terrorism Act, and sections of the Penal Code appear to negate these constitutional guarantees for freedom of expression. For example, the Press and Journalists Act of 2000 refers merely to the statutory media council, whose independence is believed to be compromised by the government's hand. Meanwhile, the Anti-Terrorism Act criminalizes the publication and dissemination of content that promotes terrorism, vaguely defined and guilty convictions can carry up to 10 sentences. In addition, the Penal Code contains provisions on criminal libel and promotion of sectarianism, imposing penalties that entail lengthy jail term. While none of these laws contain specific provisions on online modes of expression, they could arguably be invoked for online communications and generally create a chilling effect on freedom of expression. In the meantime, while the Uganda judiciary has been known to rule progressively in cases involving press freedom and freedom of expression, in 2004, for example, the Supreme Court struck down a penal code provision that criminalized the publication of lawsuits with the Constitutional Court, passing the law on sedition in 2010. Nevertheless, judicial rulings protecting constitutional fundamental rights, constitutional guarantees. Nevertheless, judicial rulings protecting constitutional guarantees for free expression have not stopped the government from taking action against fundamental rights. Though prosecutions against journalists and citizens for online expression remain rare. While there are no website registration requirements in Uganda, registration for mobile phone SIM cards and mobile internet subscriptions was instituted in March 2012 and involves a collection of personal data, including photographs and address details. The deadline to register was extended to later we all registered, but civil society groups criticized the program for infringing on the right to privacy given the lack of a necessary data protection law. And an injunction filed by the Human Rights Network for Journalists Uganda to stop the registration exercise were thrown out of the High Court. Government monitoring and surveillance of electronic communications has become a worrisome issue in Uganda since 2010, when Parliament currently passed a regulation of interception of communications following the terrorist attacks by the Al-Shabaab militants in July 2010. This allowing for the interception of communications. The Act requires telecommunication companies to install equipment that enables real-time electronic surveillance of suspected permission to tap into personal communications based on national security concerns. The action can be requested by the Security Minister and granted by the High Court. Telecom companies are also required to disclose the personal information of individuals suspected of terrorism to authorities upon issue of a court warrant, or notice from the Minister on matters related to national security, national economic interest, and public safety. Failure to comply with the provisions in the Act entails penalties up to 5 years in prison for intermediaries and, in addition, license revocations. Meanwhile, clauses in the Anti-Terrorism Act also give security officers the power to intercept the communications of individuals suspected of terrorism and to keep them under surveillance. This includes journalists who are suspected to have been in touch with individuals designated as terrorists by the state. As of April 2013, it's not clear the extent to which the provisions of the Act have been implemented or operationalized. For instance, it's unknown whether service providers have installed monitoring equipment as required by law. It's also unclear whether the government has asked service providers to monitor communication without the court warrant. Meanwhile, telecom industry observers argue that competition between service providers makes it harder for them to readily hand over the information to government without going through legal channels. The observers also don't rule out the possibility that some companies may cooperate quietly with government requests. Nevertheless, a private interview conducted by Freedom House with an LGBT rights group that is lesbian, bisexual, gay, in early 2013, uncovered a case in which an email attachment sent among a private group of individuals was possibly intercepted by an unknown actor. According to one of the members of the LGBT group, the attachment, which included information about different groups in Uganda's LGBT community, was later published in a local tabloid, outing certain organizations involved in LGBT activism that could not be corroborated. The incident falls in line with Uganda's history of discrimination against the country's LGBT community that has manifested in similar cases of public naming and shaming campaigns against these groups. Journalists in the traditional media face harassment and occasional violence for their reporting in print outlets. And these types of violations are slowly beginning to seep into the online sphere. One young blogger, out of Uganda, reportedly received warning from the government about his blogging activities in 2012, particularly after he wrote about the civil conflict in the ethnic Acholi region of the country. Meanwhile, politically motivated hacking attacks are not significant in Uganda as usual. There was one case reported in early 2013 involving a hacking and vandalism attack against the website of the same LGBT rights group discussed above. The perpetrator behind the attack remains unknown. Ugandan government websites have also been hacked from actors outside the country a number of times since past year. For example, the International Hacker Group Anonymous hacked into the office of the Prime Minister's website in protest against the anti-homosexuality bill. That's right. So after all that, we were rated partly free. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Grace. Any reactions to her discussions, presentation, additions? We realize that internet in Uganda is actually not taken seriously yet, even if it's by the way, but it's part of our day together. And so, her presentation in the summary In summary, next one. Internet freedoms. Uganda is public free with around only 11 obstacles to access that we reported. That is 2012. Then limits on content only 8. Violation of user rights 15. While 2013, it's the same 11, 8, and 12, which is 34. The scoreboard is in, it has 3 colors, green, yellow, and purple. And purple usually is not free, green is free. So you'll find in also some other countries they have green, so they have more information about limited access and research. Any reactions?
Yeah, thank you very much to the organizer. Grace, thank you very much for the good report and well detailed. My concern is one is about the cyber cable. The Minister of ICT was supposed to provide internet to all districts. Actually, those wires all over from Kaware to Kasese, all over. Could we have made research to know what happened exactly? Because without enough internet access to these communities of country would be service. I think you mentioned it even in your own presentation. So we need more access to internet. So how do we do it? That was one of the ways that we would have to get enough access to internet. So could we have found out what happened to that side of the world?
What I remember, remember the Internet Governance Forum, the Country Governance Forum, it was noted that while cables had been laid across, and the aim was at each district and also schools and universities, the kind of cable that was laid was actually of low quality compared to what had been anticipated. And so those were part of the challenges that affected the internet access within the country areas.
Thank you so much. I'm Claude Gokumo from Uganda Research Institute. My question is, the data we have, what is the source of the data? Was it research made by yourself, or you sourced it from other sources? Because we need further, because Uganda is a country where even the population is not known. So, at least we need to know the source of that.
Quite a number of sources. With reports, reports done by other people. So this will be happening, but we just need the information which you can find online.
Yeah, it's important to note that Freedom House has a scoring. The 34, 11, and 8 is the score. 8 is the temporary Freedom House, but they do report annually in so many other countries. So that index is available online, so the parameters that have been used to reach those scores. But again, this is the data, like Chris has said, we do the report the most reliable transfer what the government takes the population of the country. Then the incidents, again, like she said, the news and any other reports that are available. The laws themselves, again, these laws are available, called the Constitution, the Internet and Communications Act, the Electronic Transactions Act. Those legal frameworks are analyzed and provisions are summarized.
What is the question? What does Uganda pay in the region? Because you just give us figures around Uganda.
comparison of Uganda within the region, other countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi.
We don't have a comparison with, so each country does its own report with anything. Can't say Kampala is of other countries. But it's all available on the website.
Compared to the rest of the region, the double check, there are only a few countries in the whole of Africa that are actually free. I think South Africa is one of them, and Kenya. The rest, Uganda, Rwanda, Nigeria, and then North Africa, the Arab states, most of them are free. I'll just quickly check. And my Right, so all 10 countries that were examined, 10 is sub-Saharan Africa, not North Africa, which is under Middle East and Middle East and Northern Africa. So in sub-Saharan Africa, only 10 countries were studied, and of those 10, 2 were free, so that's South Africa and Kenya. Then 6 are not free. That would be Uganda, Rwanda, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, and Malawi, and Angola. Yes. And then the not free are the Zimbabwe, Sudan, Ethiopia. Ethiopia has always been classified as not free because it employs physical and non-physical means of restricting the internet. And they have one state provider telecommunications anyway, so it makes it all the more easy for them to block and restrict access to the internet. In terms of the rest of the world, Asia had 2 countries that are free, 8 that are not free, 4 that are partly free. Eurasia, which would be the countries that are further out in Asia, they had 3 that were free, 5 not free, 2 partly free. Australia, the European Union, Iceland, and the United States, all of them are free. 9 countries in that region are free that were assessed. Latin America, you've got 1 free and 4 not free and 1 partly free. Middle East and North Africa, the region I mentioned before, has 5 not free and 6 partly free. None of those countries in that region that were assessed are free. So comparatively, I guess you could say that out of 60 countries, for sub-Saharan Africa to have 6, and the majority of them not being free, is worrying because not very many people on the continent have internet access. But if that many countries are restricting access, then what will happen when there is more people that are accessing the internet? Whereas in Europe, Asia, and the United States, where internet penetration is a bit higher, they're free, except that that's subject to debate based on Snowden and all the other things that happen. I wasn't really interested in that.
I have 2 questions. One is, if you look at maybe you can scroll on the website to the summary at the top. So I'm just trying to understand the numbers, right? So what does the obstacle to access 0 to 25 means? And then limits on content 0 to 35? Is that like the percentage? At the bottom it says total 0 to 100, and then it says 0 is mostly 3. And you know, in this in the summary there, yeah. So it says on the left side, this is obstacle to access. That would be between 0 and 25. Okay, is that like a percentage?
That's the scale from 0 to 25 was being used.
Okay, so that's not like the absolute number of, that's just a scale. Okay, so when you say 11 on the probably 2012, 11, that's like the number of them per in that year, is that like a...
No, it's just it's like a score.
I think any assessment tool that runs will have its own scoring mechanism. And I think the best thing that we can use to try and educate ourselves, and if we can find the tool that is used to say, to validate the scoring mechanism.
Okay.
Looking at the numbers themselves may not make a lot of sense. And we see quite a lot of this. So the best thing we can do is to say, how do we educate ourselves to understand what does 11 mean? And if it is the other side, what does it mean? So that's my 2 cents.
I'm not questioning the numbers, but I'm just want to understand, like, how do we read this thing? So is that publicly available? Like, how do you use it? That's on the website as well? Okay, thank you. The second question was, I don't know if I remember this right, but in the light of the, the NSA surveillance big thing in America, I don't know if it's really concerns us in Uganda, but there was, I don't know if that was like an interview with Assange or something, but there was a big concern about this Huawei company who is trying to install the optic fiber. The Chinese might also tap into the national network fiber. I don't know. Is this the mandate of Freedom House to inspect those things, or who can investigate?
We did go that far. We just went with reports that we could find that have evidence. We didn't want to go into speculating, but I'm sure it happens somehow.
Okay. That is just my...
Thank you very much for the report and the organization. I just want to make a comment that most often we like things because we see other people using them nicely. Most often we see cameras being used by the journalists taking photos or cameramen. Long ago we didn't know that anyone can own a camera. I guess most of you have digital cameras, take photos and keep your moments. I've had the trouble with telecom companies concerning internet. Before in 2007, that's when I got the first modem. And when I went to open, the guy was asking for a check, that you have to pay by check. I told him, do you have a checkbook? He said, yes, of course I have. That is a tenant on the table. So I told him I'm disappointed because I've just used my credit card and I can't take back the money to the bank. Say, oh, yeah, we can now take your credit card, take a photocopy, and open an account. And indeed, I got the modem. The other part which came badly was when they changed from my monthly payment to bundle in the internet. Because I guess most of the people who run this thing look at the profits. But if you look at the banking sector now, which is going mobile and internet banking, if we made internet available to people, with e-learning also coming up, then we would know that we can now advertise from the other side. Because if you're a telecom company, then you can now know students will buy my modems because they will access content on the e-learning, for example. If Stanbic knows their customers now can transact business in the comfort of their living rooms, then internet now becomes a common resource. Now the same applies to you people who are in the media. You should now make sure that these things are not seen as those which belong to the other fourth arm of the government, but everyone can use it. Because if I'm a farmer in a given farm and I can take a photograph of my tomatoes and send them to the people that these are my tomatoes if you want some, then we can now know that internet is everyone's living activity. Otherwise, if you look at now all the media houses, you can't post anything on them. Those who have Facebook pages, they put a post in where you can post a photo Or let's say I've seen an accident and I take a photo, I can't post it on almost all the key Facebook pages because it is disabled. But Facebook made that option for that purpose. So we tend to think of the negatives until when we now look at and advertise these resources for the betterment of society. We shall remain in that quagmire of thinking. And this is proven. Maybe it is our problem as Africans that any new invention we see it in the negative. So that was my comment, that we should look at how we look at internet as a good resource, not as somewhere where we post funny cartoons of people, abuse each other, when actually we can use it for communication, living well, getting streams of TVs, and be able to watch a program which was, streamed some time back. That is my comment. I look at the positive side of everything.
Thank you. Yes.
I think there's a comment around the national backbone and access to internet and how far it has gone. I would, the National IT Authority has a link. If you go to their website, they'll be able to show you what they've been able to cover. And that will show you where the backbone is in terms of the fiber cable. What we can't tell is whether it is live at the back as of now. So there's the aspect of having the cable in that location. The aspect of being able to transmit data on that cable is what I think they've done now. And if I'm not wrong, they identified a private manager to manage the national backbone infrastructure, implying that companies can go to that private manager and use that facility to transmit data from one point to another. That is information. They haven't, I think because the gentleman was saying access. So among the places covered is not one of them. They've covered places around up to Malaba, Busia, Malaba. They have connected the Nakasero Porto area and up to northern, the border. Yes, so it starts from Barara, but Barara Kampala is not connected. Yeah, Barara Kampala is not connected. But also, I think government, with all its issues, may not be something that we want to look at. I would say, when you look at the national coverage of the internet, you'll see a better picture, if I could put it that way, where the service providers, the private sector service providers have more or less covered the entire country. Rwanda has decided to go the LTE model where they're using Wi-Fi technology, and they're going to cover the entire country just with the wireless kind of technology, if I could put it that way. Why? It is quicker to deploy, it is slightly cheaper, they're going broadband as opposed to this. There are pluses and minuses. Hey, internet is internet. How it gets to you is very, very good of us pay attention to how it gets to us, as long as it is good connectivity. So I just thought, if you went to the National IT Authority website, you'll be able to see the national backbone infrastructure project and how far it has gone.
Thank you. I wanted to...
Thank you so much. My question was, according to the rank you gave us, is it according to the democracy of the country? Because when I hear you mentioning the ranking, it's like this ranking is according to the democracy in that country. That's why we have I think only two that are totally fake as well, South Africa and is it Kenya? And the rest of the countries, when you see their ranking, and when you go and you see the democracy in that country is So maybe you can give us another view on how you made that ranking.
Freedom House does these annual reports, and I think they have two categories. They have media freedoms, traditional media, that's press, written, broadcast media. And they do one on democracy. They do one on freedom online, solely online, and fourth one on but they have those four categories. So democracy is separate. Democracy covers things of participation, voting processes and dictatorship. That's an entire category on its own. Then the press freedom, like I said, covers traditional media, which is broadcast, radio, television, and print press. And this third category of reports is the online freedom on the internet, solely, completely and solely on the internet. That's freedom outside of the other two that I mentioned. So, like Mike said, they have rankings and a number of questions. So this report is literally derived from an assessment tool that has questions where you say yes, no, and if the answer is no, it explains the evidence from the news or from policy or from wherever the evidence is from. So this does not cover democracy entirely. Certainly, I don't think it covers but it's entirely on the freedoms that people enjoy online, whether it's access to information, privacy and security, surveillance, or interception of their communication, those issues related to internet communication.
But those issues actually equal to democracy. In other words, you cannot be not free online and you claim that you are free offline. These things go hand in hand. So when you look at the countries that actually rank as not free, you are not going to find that in the real world they are democracies. No, they are not. And that's the whole point of this meeting, that the rights, as Geoffrey said, the rights which we enjoy offline are the same rights that should be transferred in the offline world. If you are not enjoying them online, we are not going to enjoy them offline. So they really go hand in hand. All those measures which have been mentioned by Ashna have an impact on democracy, have an impact on free expression. So we shouldn't divorce them. But I also wanted to say something to the gentleman, a little bit about that methodology as I understand it. There are very many questions which are asked for instance, let's say internet surveillance. So they will ask, is there evidence of the state monitoring citizens' online communications? Then that is ranked from 1 to 3. If there is high evidence, you score 3. 3 is the worst. If there is just a bit, you score 2. If there is none, you score 0. Okay? So the countries which have high points on each of these categories, for instance, 11, which Uganda has in one category, you'll find that maybe the UK has 3. Those which score highly in one category and another, and have a high total are the ones which are not free. But that's the way it works. But I also wanted to ask a question to Grace and other people here. In her presentation, she talked about self-censorship, both online and offline, and mentioned taboo topics or taboo subjects. I think there was the president's family, and things like that. And so I ask, is it true that these are things which people in this country are not comfortable talking about online? Grace can answer that, but also we could hear from some other people. And do we think government is actually carrying out surveillance in this country?
The taboo topics were in reference mostly to the traditional media. You see what happens when you report about that. The reasons received information about it because we all need computers and we cannot afford one. And it was supposed to be reconsidered. I don't know how far that has gone from one someone to another.
Esther has an answer.
Which
I don't know.
computers
Ban on used computers.
all
I think, let me first answer W's question. I think there are some taboo subjects in Uganda, like homosexuality and gay people. And I remember, I think 2 years ago, I wrote a story, and one of the things that the gay people are using is the internet. To publicize themselves and talk about themselves. Oh, Ashna has done and looked at me when I say. Okay, it's really a taboo subject, but I remember interviewing this people and they were saying they actually use the internet a lot to publicize their activities and to talk to each other and to, talk about themselves out there in the world. And then the second question, still, because I'm a journalist, when they banned the old used computers, I went to NITAU and asked the boss there, what is happening? You said after some time, you will lift the ban on used computers. And his answer was like, they are trying to formulate the guidelines for what type of computer should come in, how old should it be, what software should it have, and that kind of details. But since he said that, and I wrote it on a blog post which became very popular on my blog, I haven't heard of any more developments because they were supposed to lift it, give us guidelines. You're not totally not importing. You're importing, but we have these guidelines which you should follow if you're importing these computers. However, maybe we have somebody from NITAU or a government official to tell us. Because it's a question that has been ringing in my head. Every time I meet them and ask them, they just say they're still working on the guidelines.
Thank you.
I'm neither from NITA nor from government. So my comment on the computers, the same applies to the fridges. The things that they banned were these CRT or these big, huge monitors which they used to import. Some countries would always replace their computers with flat screen, and scrupulous people who want to make money would go there and buy them at a cheap price and come and dispose them here in the country. So those are the computers that were banned. But I tend to believe that computer tax was reduced. All computers, if you are buying a computer, the computers are cheaper than they used to be because there is no tax on computers, cameras, and other things that promote innovations. That's why anything to do with ICT was subsidized in terms of the tax. When you are importing anything to do with ICT, the tax is also. So the old computers of CRT, those which are like a TV, they are no longer fashionable for us because they emit a lot of radiation. The same applies to the used fridges. So I don't think NITAU can help on anything. They are not going to be allowed anymore.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Esther Nakasero. I am a science journalist. I work for the East African newspaper. I work with CIPESA, which is based in London. I am a blogger and I tweet. How many of you have blogs here? Only Michael. He's a lecturer and he's supposed to know that. Yes. Who are you? What's your blog?
Blog is like
Onyango Jim. Yeah. Oh, what do you blog about?
Journalistic work. Journalistic work.
Journalistic work. What is journalistic work? Well, people here are not journalists, some of them. What is journalistic work?
Journalism.
What is journalism? You can't just tell me to talk about journalism.
News articles.
On what specifically?
Politics.
You're in trouble with me. Okay, he does blog on politics. Who else has a blog? Yes, correct. What's the name of your blog?
Mine is not a blog, it's an online publication. They are almost related. I don't know that should come in a list or come to me. I run a website that publishes news for Western Uganda and a few of Kampala, and we target, our main target is the Western region, and we run stories on health and farming. It's our main target, but you know the Ugandan media is corrupted, that it needs sex and politics, so we bring in politics, but we don't bring in sex. And our main target, radio station, they don't have news. We did a research and realized that they don't have news published, so they go to our website, they go on our website and get the news for their bulletins.
Okay.
MK News in Intelligence.
That is very innovative. I think you need to tell that to the world, probably you will grow bigger.
Yeah.
So, and how many people are on Twitter here? And does anyone, okay, I know that I think Grace has one of those many people following her, but do you people have any followers who are less, who are above 1,000? I think I have 38,000.
Hey, that is serious.
No, 3,800. Check me. I am a celeb on Twitter in Uganda, and just to tell you a short story, when I came back from school in 2008, I came around and Twitter was new to Uganda, so I went and wrote a proposal and got a tip, and I was told to train Ugandan journalists on using Twitter. So I got about 20 journalists. I started telling them about the basics of Twitter. And I think none of them was interested at that time. But now, I see most of the journalists. Are you guys on Twitter? What's happening? Okay, now I realize, actually, at least we have a conversation. We have some journalists who are really on Twitter. You see them active, telling you things that you don't think you can hear elsewhere. And the media center right now also has a Twitter account, and they actually all the time feed us on information. Okay, let me go back to my presentation. I'm going to talk about the Ugandan blogosphere. People who have computers, can you please check a website called socialbakers.com and tell us how many people, how many Ugandans blog? Anybody? Social bakers? Anybody with the internet passion? Or just Google? We need some stats. And Facebook, how many people are on Facebook? I don't have the figures on me, but they are on social bakers if you care to find them. So the use of technology can have positive and negative impacts, but it allows people to connect with one another at a speed and a scale unimaginable and with a degree of anonymity. All those who use technology, all of you here, who are on email, who blog, who tweet, you know how fast your messages get out there. It's actually amazing with Twitter. When you're tweeting, somebody will know where you are, somebody will know what to do with you, somebody will know what popular thing. And it's really amazing because before this, we didn't have the technology we are using. I am not going to this. Even if we are trying to use technology, what we do now to preserve privacy and fundamental freedom online will have a profound effect on the next generation of users. Either the number grows or the number shrinks. And in Uganda, we don't know the situation yet, or I don't know the situation yet. I don't know whether the number will go up or it will go down, but definitely I can see so many people are joining, so many people are tweeting, so many people are blogging, and that helps. Privacy, sorry. Privacy is a right and human rights are universal. Behavior that is unacceptable offline, and W has talked about it, behavior that is unacceptable offline is unacceptable online, whether by governments or individual. If you think you cannot stand there and abuse me and tell me, Esther, you are an idiot, physically, why should you put it online? So some things that we do or say, if they are not acceptable offline, they shouldn't be acceptable online. That's just one of the quotes. You'll get my presentation if you want to. So, what do Ugandans use blogs, Twitter, and Facebook for? Who is on Facebook here? Perez, what do you use Facebook for?
Wilbur,
Wilbur, sorry.
What do I use Facebook for? For many reasons. One, I get their news, breaking news. They are sometimes activities are happening outside there and people are there. My friends are there all over the world. So I'm updated on activities that are happening in different areas. If the Prime Minister is visiting Kanongo, I get what he has said immediately. Like recently, Kahindo Tafiri was on radio supporting the animals, an independent candidate. Somebody posted it on Facebook. We right away called him and got the story. Like that.
Okay. I think the media is really using Facebook and other people, but you've heard from parents. Can you tell us what you use Facebook? Or are you in Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my job kind of requires a little bit of traveling every now and then. So
where are you from?
Madagascar.
Okay. Madagascar.
Yes. So it's just to connect with people, to know what's going on.
Okay. He connects with people. How do you use Facebook for? Or Twitter? Or your blog?
One connecting with people.
Maybe for those who are not there, the next to get the message is
okay. Okay, we can stop there with you. So we have one. I don't have the stats. I'm just talking out of what people do. People do a lot of exhibitions on Facebook, on Twitter. I went for a party. I met Ashna. She was dressed like this. I was there eating chicken, stuff like that. Plus it on Facebook. Everybody knows she had a wedding or what she was doing over the weekend, and that's one of the things in Uganda. And there's a lot of gossip on Facebook, which is okay. Sometimes it's good gossip, sometimes it's bad gossip. Like Komuntale, the princess, such a big deal, everybody had something to say about her. Then people do discuss politics and news, and you also actually get news from people like her. What's her name? Sorry? Namwanje. So people like Namwanje, they are covering riots. You're going to town and they're like, there's a riot. I can't pass through Kiseka Market. I can't take my car. I can't. So you make all those decisions depending on what you see on social media. We have dedicated people like Ugandans at heart. If you get their emails though, you'll be sorry for for the volumes on your email because they send emails all the time. That man,
jab.
whoever he is just killing us. But they discuss politics, and these days, I think all the stations, all the broadcasting stations, they have the Twitter feed where you can send in your comments, comment about something, and they read them online. They read them live.
Yeah.
So that helps. We also have interest groups like Black Monday, who are trying to improve services, fight corruption. They also use Facebook. And there are people who are looking for funding from mostly NGOs. They also use all those things we have talked about. There is business, both betting, there is research, there are interest groups. Breast started a journalists,
Uganda journalists.
Journalists, Uganda
Forum.
journalists, and people are quite active on that that forum. I don't know if there are journalists here who are not part of it. Are you part of it? Uganda journalists. People usually comment about what's happening as journalists, and they give you information on what is happening elsewhere, and people who win awards also love showing us how they've won awards, and it's a good thing sometimes. We also use it for marketing and publicity, entertainment, education, people who are looking for scholarships, online degrees, green cards, newspapers. It is employment. Actually, I tweet, blog, and do Facebooking for a fee. And I don't know, I've asked people elsewhere, do you do it? I mean, outside of Uganda, they do it. But inside Uganda, I keep asking people, do you do this for a fee? But I do it. I do it. EPRC right now is holding a conference, and I'm supposed to be tweeting and blogging. And every time they hold a conference, I do social media for them. The first person to employ me, I think, was Lillian. She was doing the IGF. And I was supposed to do 100 tweets for the day, which is okay. I do them all the time. I can even do 200 per day. And do 5 blog stories for her and update her Facebook page. So I and Grace usually do for EPRC, but it's a source of income. It's money that is really, you work for it. It's hard money because tweeting is not it's not a game. You're there. You have to listen. You have to keep updated all the time, and then try to hold a conversation with people out there. So it happens, but I think it's something that hasn't caught on with people around. But if you have an organization and you're holding a conference, it helps actually publicizing your event, people asking questions at that particular time, and actually for some organizations, it's when they start tweeting that they get so many followers on their Twitter holder, and it's really amazing. Sometimes you're tweeting, and the people who are interested in that subject are just too many. They are like 100, and the profile for that company or for that organization goes up. So I do that, and I've earned from it good money. Voting, like Makerere University. So what are the threats? The main issue for this discussion is really, what are the threats to people who are using social media? By that, who are these people? Everybody here is. Every one of you here is a person who uses these outlets. So what threats have we had? I want to hear from you. Do we have people whose blogs have been closed? I only know of one in Uganda. I know so many others in Ethiopia. We had the Media Leaders Forum in Addis recently, and most of the Ethiopian journalists are complaining. But in Uganda here, do we have anyone whose blog has been closed or who has been threatened in terms of blogging? Or have you heard about anybody who has suffered that? I know one. Have you heard of anyone? Isn't it amazing?
There are very many people with blog posts, but are not visible.
Yeah.
So people are writing, and it's like they're writing for themselves, and you hardly see posts like people sharing their blog links on Twitter if you posted something new, or Google Plus, on all these outlets. So people write, those who write,
yeah.
And then there's also the regularity. So you find someone posts, and if you check when they last posted on their blog post, on their blog site, like 6 months ago, and then if I can't follow you consistently, so you cannot generate traffic if you're a random blog, I could put it that way.
Yeah.
There's no consistency in your blogging. So and that is one of the challenges that we need to overcome. We need to get people who are regular bloggers and who can build a following. If you realize the guys that are globally blogging have a huge following on their blog that drives them to have another huge following on Twitter and Google Plus and Facebook. So the three must talk to each other.
Yeah, but Michael, even if I'm not a regular blogger, and I wrote a political blog, I put in political submission or something like that, you mean I would not be threatened, or nobody would read my blog, or there wouldn't be any follow? Is that the main reason that we don't have threats?
So you write a political blog.
Something of business, or
whatever it is, yeah. Now, for you to be discovered, you must promote that blog. There must be a way how we can find you, read you, then share that blog. Now, if you don't have a following, for example, I open a blog post today, and I start blogging. I have no following on Twitter, I have no following on Facebook, or even if I have, I don't share my blog on Facebook and Twitter. Now, it will most probably remain known to you, and the few people that you may send an email, 1 or 2, 3 things, and that is where understanding how to share and use unless I'm using Blogspot, which is a Google-driven thing, it gives me that option where I can share on Facebook, I can post on Twitter, I can post on LinkedIn, I can post on Google+. One thing I've found is that majority of us don't pay attention to those details.
No, we don't.
And so what happens is that when you post, it is like automatically the world will know Esther has posted. But wait a minute, if you've not activated some of those sharing links, it will remain to you that even if you write a political thing, it may take 1 or 2, 3 months of posting, that maybe one day we randomly find it out, and then maybe Grace picks it and shares and says, here is an interesting blog post. Because Grace has a following, then we start, those that follow Grace also pick it up and start sharing. And that way, then the readers start going, oh, who is this? Who is writing like this? And that's why you see people like Kalegila. If you see his following on Twitter, every time he has a blog post, he'll share it on Twitter. And that way, the different readers start thinking, oh, what is this guy writing about?
Okay, I think that's a good analysis and a good answer. It is true. Many people have blogs in Uganda, but they don't bother to put. No, they are public. You can read them, but they don't share.
They are not marketed.
Really? Why would you do a blog
They are not popularized. Huh?
So, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I just want to make the point that it doesn't necessarily require for you to publicize it for somebody to know that it's there.
Why not? I think you have to.
Yes, if somebody is like, for example, I don't know if you guys know, this is a bit more technical, but China has, you know, the Great Firewall of China, right? So if it's not even I think it's not going through VPN, they can still filter your communication. So they are like, you know, they know. So as soon as somebody browses, like yourself, you would need to preview, for example, your blog, right? So they like, even, I don't know if you use HTTPS secure thing, as long as they can filter your thing. So it doesn't really require for you to be like publicize it for like the government to know, like, this guy is actually, maybe we need to talk to him, you know, that kind of thing.
I think it depends on the location and the type of government you're dealing with.
My point is, like, that is the threat. I think we all understand that this is what we want to fight in this whole discussion. Is that, like, let's make it that Africa, or I don't know, Uganda, doesn't get to that stage where the government actually can tap into your communications.
It will take a while in Uganda. We don't have that capacity.
Yeah, but you know, you let one thing slide, next thing you know is it's a sovereign state.
Yes,
yes, we'll
thank you very much. I agree with Michael that we need to publicize what we write on our blogs. But I have another idea. This blogging and online publications is a virgin area in Uganda, and it has not got any attention. Last time when we were at Archive, I left a bit earlier, but I was suggesting for a forum of bloggers and online publishers, like an association. You meet and agree on how to handle those issues, how you behave, how you can market yourselves.
We have that. We do have that. Don't we have a
bloggers and online publishers?
Yes, there is some association, but probably it is not well marketed.
It's not active.
It is active because they do have a Facebook page and it is open. People, you know, you can subscribe. If you're on Facebook, you should be able to pick it up. But I'm not so sure about their offline activity, whether they do gather. I just heard of the social media award that went on. I don't know how many participated. So for me, I thought it was a joke or something. But I think there's a bloggers association somewhere. Yeah. Although they make version online.
Esther, you have been always our heroine on those issues. Could you please make the bloggers and online publishers association be known and be vibrant as Health Association is, Uganda Health Journalists Association is doing well, and we see more, because this is the area we should be going. This is where we are headed to. This is where the country is headed to, because in terms of development, without internet, without internet access, without all those, we are headed for what? For bad. So we don't. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I will try to get there. But Lilia has already maybe you can just Google and get their details. But I know that it exists.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, maybe we also need to know what a blog is first, if you can explain it. I'm just trying to be
Is there a possibility that somebody here has never seen a blog?
Yes, as the gentleman.
No.
As the gentleman said that he blogs for himself, there are a bunch of people. Can I explain? There are people.
Yeah.
This is a web log. You are putting a log on the web. So I can always wake up and put my stuff on the internet and say, I'm going to work, I was able to accomplish this, I went to a meeting and I learned a lot. As time goes on, when my stuff gets overpopulated, people start getting interested in it. When actually I was doing stuff as my diary. That's the essence of the blog. It wouldn't need anyone to advertise it as so much as possible. What maybe we need to advertise are the skills. Can we give people skills? Give them online etiquette skills.
Yes.
You know, There is an open secret I can say here that there is a radio station I helped to open Facebook pages, and at one time they thought I had all that time to waste. Maybe I want to monitor them or whatever. But I was tired of people who would make comments on their website and they use vulgar names. So I said, if we can use Facebook pages where everyone has a true name and a true face, then you do not talk vulgarity on a Facebook page of a given program. And most of you could maybe hearing me on radio, on TV, giving comments, because it helps me. I make a comment and I'm sure I can hold on to that comment. It is on my face, it is on my full names. So concerning the blogs, and as she talked of the social media awards which were done, it wasn't a joke. Even other TV made awards. If we do things in this cocoon and we don't show the public where things are, then the public wouldn't know and wouldn't benefit. So we should also learn how to be advocates, not only activists in human rights, but also in knowledge. Many people who have seen me may think I always want to be on the camera. No, there are things I know, and if I keep them to myself, then I think I wasted my time paying fees if others don't know. So we have to go out there and give knowledge. The last bit I want to say, talk about is this issue of articles. When I made an article on roads one time, some gentleman, I talked about traffic lights, is from UETCL transmission. He called me and said, I want to meet you. I said, for what? He said, I've been trying to talk about the traffic lights in one area, but KCC then wouldn't allow me. He said, but I'm a young man who doesn't even have anything to do with bureaucracy. When we met, I asked him 3 questions. Do you have professional bodies, or do you have an engineering body? He said, yes. What do you do when you meet? We drink some beer and talk about politics. What are your objectives? Well, we meet as colleagues. I told him, if you can organize public lectures, teach people for the electrical engineering, teach people how to conserve the electricity, the civil engineers talk to people how to maintain their roads, and the other people. So if bodies, especially professional bodies, like now that they have been elected to the KCCA, could get those skills to the public, we wouldn't be having all these problems. I've interacted with a lot of journalists, and I have to say I'm disappointed. Either it is your profession that when you are getting information, you act as a pipe, that I talk to you, you give it out. There is a sense of where you can go to a Google and at least get more information. All I do when they come to me, I first teach them. I say, sit there, I teach you. If you still got questions after my teaching, fine, I'll answer them in your own chronological order. But if I answer all your questions, then go out there, arrange your information properly, and give out an article. And I must say that I'm proud of those whom I have interacted with. They report accordingly. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, we are running out of time, so please make your comments fast and quick. Yes.
About policing, I think as Uganda we should still be lacking, or we should humble that we are still lacking. Our policing is in a format that you produce something, then they start following you. It has already made some damage. If it is bad,
if it doesn't make damage, they don't follow you?
They will follow you, but you will never know.
Okay.
Yet in other countries where real policing is at a high level, your content is going to be scrutinized before it hits the media. So in Uganda, I think, you say you don't have the capacity, but I think the capacity is there.
Really?
Yes. The capacity is there, but the will is not yet that big. Because trust me, the security agencies have the capacity. You want to test it?
It's not the big one.
Okay.
Yes,
To monitor.
yes, they have the capacity. Then, when you talk about publicizing our roadblocks, it comes back to the fact that most of us don't want to. Someone writes a blog, and because it doesn't have that, doesn't have politics, doesn't have what do you call it, Uganda. So even if you publicize it, you do what, people will read, they will never leave a comment, so you never know whether you're being followed or not. So I think it will get back to us that from here, when you read someone's blog, at least leave a comment. Then you just do what.
Okay. So Michael is asking, which capacity are we talking about that the government doesn't have? In 2011, I was the editor of a small publication called iNetwork, where Margaret works. And we had a story of a young boy. He was a minister's son who knew so much about IT. And he used to keep around at one of the internet cafes in town. So he would follow you, he would know, okay, this guy works with an NGO, they're sending wiring money or something. So you know, the practice here is, people go to the internet cafe, they don't log out. So the guy actually got a job there, started working, and he would pick information from people's emails. And people didn't know. So on a good day, he landed on, I think, one of those Kampala-based organization, and the guy had come, and he really wanted to know if they wired the money. So they did wire the money. The message was there. They don't say we are going to wire the money. Then he said, no, don't wire the money to that account. Let me send you an account to which you can wire the money. And this boy went and opened an account instantly. He was working with a girl, equally from Bakere. Quickly they opened an account, and then he sent a message to this account. I don't know how, I think because he was working with that internet cafe, he was able to retain that email without closing it. Or I think he closed it and put a second password. So this was, oh, okay, we shall wire the money to that account. And they did. This man, the guy from Kampala, didn't know what was happening. They kept on saying, we have sent the money to the second account to say we should open. And it was like $45,000. When the case went to police didn't know what to do. First of all, the information that they were supposed to use as an exhibit was on a flash disk. The boy had locked the flash disk. There was drama because all those police officers could not access the data on the flash disk. So, well, I know that they can monitor. I know that maybe UCC has some capacity, maybe. But largely our system, Michael, is not up there. It's
not there.
That's what I was trying to say. They can physically try and follow your internet in terms of analysis, internet
So we have discovered, or we have talked about the people who are threatened. They are journalists, they are people who are active in terms of social media, and how do we want, you and I want these people, want more people to join the group. We want more bloggers, we want more tweets, we want more Facebookers. But how do we protect the rights of people? How do we make these people responsible when they are communicating? That is, I don't have answers to that, and I'm not going to answer the question, but it's just reflection of things we need to think about. How can privacy be verified when data needs to, we need to verify data, but how can we promote privacy in that sense? Do we have existing systems with models we can emulate? If Kenya does it well, or if Madagascar is a good place to learn from, can we do it? Some people want to post these things and remain anonymous. I don't want to be known. I know that Kazinda has stolen 100 million shillings. Can it be put on social media and I remain anonymous without people knowing? That I, Esther, sent in that submission. Do we have circumstances in which we need to adjust these concerns? who needs to have oversight? Is it the government? Should we form a monitoring group that can do it, that is independent? Who needs to be involved? And do we need any external expertise to do what we have to do? So unless you have any questions, that's it from me. Thank you for listening. You're a good audience. You have all participated, not all of you, most of you. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Esther. We shall hold the reactions and first have a tea break. It's going to be working tea.
So, I just have a small announcement, or rather an exercise. I think you see me going around placing some of these colorful papers. So, following to the next discussion, I think after break, where we'll have Ashna talk about the Open Net initiative and Mr. Sevagala talk about annotated. The last session will be discussing threats, challenges to online rights. What we'd like you to probably, as you enjoy a nice tea and snacks and coffee there, is to ponder some questions that some of which Esther has touched nicely, and they'll fit into this discussion when we are closing off. So I think, I don't know, I think oranges go ready to go. Maybe pink, let's start. Pink looks like red. On this pink paper, would like you to write just 1, 2, 3, at most 3. Yes, the first question there, what are the threats to online freedom in Uganda? I think Esther has mentioned them, but would just like to pick from you. Well, Esther said some people were good participants, others not. But would like everyone to share what they think are the threats to online freedoms on this big paper. Just 1, 2, 3 of what you think. On the orange, we want to think about challenges. I don't know if that's challenges and threats. They may sound the same, but what are the challenges you think? What challenge exists? And on green, we are ready to go. What are the measures, strategies that should be undertaken to improve? Just 3 points, and then we'll feed this into the discussion. So I'll collect these papers, I think, after Ashna's presentation. I'll just go picking them when we come back, and then it will fit into the discussion in the last session. Thank you.
Members, we're going to continue with the working team. You can always get back and refill the cup. But I wish to invite Ashna. She's the next speaker. She works with CIPESA. She said
Good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Ashna. I hope you're enjoying your teas, and I'm sorry I'm going to talk as you, but just to make sure we catch up with time, because we started a bit late and overrun. So yes, I'll be talking as you enjoy your nice snacks. I work with CIPESA. Everyone's been saying CIPESA, but nobody has bothered to tell you what CIPESA is. We are the collaboration of international ICT policy for East and Southern Africa. As Mr. Wakabi mentioned in the beginning, we're research establishment. We do research and knowledge brokerage in the area of ICT, broadly for development, but we have a number of thematic areas. And online freedoms is a new area that we've ventured in. So the project is called Open Net Africa. We're the coordinator of it. I'll tell you about the rest of the supporters that we have a little while later. So yes, I'm Ashna with CIPESA, but right now I'm wearing the Open Net Africa hat. So I'm going to give you a very brief, and I promise, and I hope I am accurate in that. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. You've had good discussions beforehand, so I won't repeat everything that's been said, and we've all got an idea of the context in Uganda as well as other countries when it comes to the internet and the freedom to enjoy online. So I'll tell you about our aim, why, which which we've already discussed, so the need that we're trying to address, and our approach, the strategy implementing what we're hoping to achieve, which is the aim. Then I'll give you an overview of the portal itself, and then lastly, the people who are making it possible, besides CIPESA. So yes, already as the concept note, the invitation, and all the discussions said earlier on, we aim to promote online freedoms in East and Southern African states. Our current focus countries are 7. That's Uganda, one of them. Kenya is the second one. Third is Tanzania. Fourth, Rwanda, and Burundi fifth. So we've got all the East African cluster covered. Then in Southern Africa, we cover South Africa. And in the north, still east, basically, is Ethiopia. So those are 7 focus countries. We try to obviously address the issues of internet freedom in other countries where they arise. We will share that information. But in terms of what we aim to do, the activities I'll mention later on, the focus countries are those 7 that I've mentioned. Why do we want to promote and monitor online freedom in these countries? For all the reasons that have been said prior to my standing up here and all the issues that we raised, it's very important that we promote these freedoms. And also, when we look at the rate at which ICTs are growing in the region, it's very high. 16% of the population in all of Africa use the internet. 62% use mobiles that in some cases are internet enabled. But also all the companies that you mentioned, outside of being social on Facebook and Twitter, these technologies, either mobile or internet, are enabling citizen participation, enabling democracy. They are being used to monitor service delivery, fight corruption, mobile money, and these are platforms that primarily the underlying technology is the internet. So it's important that, you know, it's a technology that we're using to promote development and participation on the continent, but it should not be a platform that, you know, undermines or used to to undertake surveillance. There are lots of incidents across the continent as well as outside that infringe the rights that people have been enjoying online. There's numerous accounts of those incidents. You go to records that show how much information Facebook discloses to governments, or the information that governments ask for from Facebook and Twitter. And then there are also laws. There are very many laws across the region that, even though they were not developed in the internet age, they can be used to curtail the rights that people enjoy. And in some of the countries where the laws probably don't provide for those infringements, you know, the law itself, so you take, the legal system takes it into their hands to actually, you know, arrest people, intimidate people, shut down the internet, or shut down Facebook. The history is there, so it's important that as the internet grows in the region, that we promote the online freedoms, as we do the physical freedoms, like you mentioned earlier. And in promoting, of course, you need to be informed and have reliable research, have legitimate basis on your advocacy and noise making, and not just go out there and make noise without clear information or background or research being done to promote these liberal regimes. Our approach is summarized there. The approach, the same as the activities, is the strategy for how we'll go about promoting. It's new, like Dr. said. Prior to this, I think there was an open nets initiative that was global, but had a few focus countries, and they were not, most of them are not in Africa. There's an open net Eurasia, which deals with Europe and Asia. So this is the first of its kind in Africa. So what we're going to do, or what we aim to do, is research and advocate, but informed research and advocacy. So we have to analyze policies, we have to gather evidence, we have to look at the practices in those countries. The main issues we will look at are intermediary liability, whether the ISPs or telecoms that provide with this internet have obligations under legal frameworks that tell them that, you know, when a president calls and says, shut down this website, they are obliged to do so. Such legislation can be called intermediary liability legislation specifically, or it will appear in another law, like the Communication Terrorism Act, the tax liability of intermediaries, we're finding out where it's spelled out and what it says and what the obligations of intermediary liability are. In some sense, it would be great if they just said, no, intermediaries are not liable for the information that you or I or another person posts online. So we're going to research into that. Secondly, we look at privacy and security. Again, these are issues that legacy legislations don't address. There are not very many laws that specifically spell out what privacy and security mean online. They make it there in the Constitution that you're entitled to your privacy, your security, whatever you practice behind closed doors is your business. In legacy legislation, physically it's there, but it's not always spelled out when it comes to online sphere. Thirdly, we look at access to information. Access to information, sometimes it's provided for, sometimes it's not. But that's spelling out of whether or not you are allowed to access information that the government holds on you. If it was obtained through an online or technical means, do you have the right to go and ask, I don't know, UNEP that, I want the information that you have on me, that information probably is somehow. So that's the third issue we look at when we're analyzing policy. And then lastly, it will be expression, freedom of expression. Whether it's freedom of expression, as you mentioned earlier, physical, legacy, broadcast media, whether it's radio, print media, or television, but also freedom of expression online. Like Esther said, do I have the right to go and call her an idiot on Twitter just because I have to see stream? The dialogue is what we're doing here. Like I said, there are not many conversations happening on these matters, even though they're happening. We all read about Snowden and people putting their hands up in America and Europe. We don't see much of that in Africa. So we want people to engage like we're doing here and discuss these matters. They report it to us, we're using the internet. Sometimes we're victims if we're going to be arrested and intimidated by authorities. We need to spur this dialogue. But also, most importantly, even though we're promoting online freedoms and enjoying them, the dialogue must entail training and telling users that you have to be responsible online. So it's not just one hand, 3 points of government, but it also comes down to us. So like, again, the example of saying, I'll call Esther an idiot. I should have the discipline to know that I should not call Esther an idiot on a platform like that. Even though it's available, even though it's free, I as a user have to have the discipline and the knowledge and skills and awareness that, there's certain behavior that, is really not freedom of expression per se. So that responsibility will also bring it up in dialogue and also bring it next into knowledge and skills development. Journalists trained, probably have Esther training you about how she earns from Twitter and Facebook, but also how to use it safely and securely and responsibly. That's the training and skills development we shall cover. Then lastly, we'll chart initiatives that promote online freedoms or use the internet to promote freedom of expression, access to information, privacy and security, or all the wider freedoms, human rights defenders. Because all the normal human rights that you enjoy should translate into the internet. So whatever those people do physically, if there are organizations or initiatives that are translating into online, we'll chat them, we'll involve them, we'll bring them to the table in exercises like this, just like Amnesty Witness, OpenNet, bloggers in Uganda, journalists, that kind of network building. That's our modest, or would I say very ambitious plan in this initiative. Now I'll talk primarily about I'll show you the portal in a little bit, but this is what we provide on the portal. So it'll be information on all those things that I mentioned, cybersecurity, access to information, freedom of expression. And that information will be primary and secondary. Primary, where we've done the research and actually had people on the ground verifying or writing reports or analyzing those policies that I mentioned in 7 countries. That would be primary research or primary data. We will also have people where instances where you've reported an incident. I am in Burundi and government has blocked access to red pepper, for instance, because it's not just hearsay. We will not just tell you, oh, somebody said Facebook is blocked, or somebody said there were dead people. Well, it's actually look like that as well, because it's not good to post things without verifying them. So yeah, we won't have that scenario of Esther putting dead bodies on Twitter for the whole world to see when it's not accurate. It's important to be honest and have verified information. So we'll do tests on the ground. Those will cover the censorship incidents, and then the research will also be by in-country-based researchers, but also ourselves, in collaboration with our partners. And then we'll provide this material. We'll start from the portal, yourselves and others and your networks will be able to use it and broadcast this message and take it much farther than we could from our small establishments in Tinder. That's why you're all here. So I will show you our portal in a little while. Unfortunately, technology, I think when we talk about access and all those things, sometimes we forget that it says no sometimes. So the portal is live, but some of the content, because it used to be on a development, what do they call it? The one before live, whatever it's called. So some of it has been transported successfully onto the live portal, some of it hasn't. So where you find that there's no content, it's somewhere that the technical team has not been able to bring from the development server to the live server. But we're trying to be nice and neat and minimalist and not to clutter you with too much information. There'll be news on the left-hand side, publications, and we'll talk about events and inform you where things that are related to cybersecurity and online freedoms are happening. If we're able to attend, we'll document it somewhere, or forward you to links where this information is available. We can't be everywhere in those 7 countries or the continent for riskless. But I think the most important one is the report a violation functionality, which is a form that you fill in and you'll mention where an incident has happened. So like I gave the example earlier, Burundi rectifier has been blocked on this date. We get this information, and like I said, we have the capacity to test whether that is true. It's extended capacity. We have some gadgets and stuff that people on the ground will be able to insert into a network and test whether that website is not accessible. They do it not on just one ISP, 2, 3, 4 different ISPs. Some comply with government laws, some don't. Some comply with the pressure, some don't. So if you need an incident that happened, it's important to name and shame. Is it MTN that's blocked? Or is it UCL? Or is it Yahoo? Or is it the Uganda Kingdom network? The reason why it's important to do that is because there are telecoms that are government-owned and there are telecoms that are private. So their behavior will, in some cases, be different, in some cases, be the same. So the tests make sure that they're comprehensive enough. At the top, in the country profiles, policy and legislation section, that will have the research that I mentioned earlier on. So it documented information on what the country has in, like I said, freedom of expression and media freedom, access to information, privacy and data protection, intermediary liability at the top. So that information will be there. It will also be downloadable for people to use in research, to make references to as PDF, but also as content. Then under country profiles, it will give political backgrounds and how many people in that country. If there have been legacy incidents of censorship, they'll be documented. Because we're new, we're covering more recent developments. So, I mean, there was probably no media freedoms 10 years ago in Rwanda, and then they kind of went progressive and then maybe backward. So that history and background would be available as well. Events, I mentioned them earlier. Then lastly, the last thing, important thing I want to point out is publications. Besides the publications that we will produce ourselves as OpenNet, we, like I said, we provide secondary data as well. We have partners or other people that do similar work that we do, but they don't always have a centralized platform to put this information and this research material. So this will also be up there. So for instance, now you have monitoring hate speech in Kenya. That's a report done in the run-up to elections by I Have Research. You've got something on Nigeria that's by another partner with, but because we don't particularly have West Africa as a focus country, but that research is relevant and important. And this photo is a repository. Oh my God, that's a picture of me. Nobody asked. What am I doing? Your president.
You are the person.
Yes. Yes, you didn't ask my permission. I'm entitled to privacy and security. So you didn't ask my permission to put that up there. But yes, so these publications and researches will be available. If they're not ours, we'll have permission to have put them there, which really I did not seek. But we have permission from the Nigerian authors, we have permission from the Kenyan authors. So we'll put all that information there as a useful repository for you. So yeah, navigate the portal. That's the only way you can get familiar with it. When new, the content is not as much as it should be, but it will grow with time. And like I said, where you find missing content, it's the technical issues of moving from the design to the live portal. So some things got lost in transition, but they'll be up there eventually. And of course, we welcome your input and comments and feedback, everything. Just get in touch with us. So I've been talking about the partners and the support. Who is making this possible? Like I said, CIPESA were the coordinator of this project in all 3 countries, but we enjoy support from a number of people, and of course it's good to acknowledge them, but then you're also aware that these are people that are key players in what they're aiming to do. Besides coordinating CIPESA, we have support from HIVOS, we have support from IGRC. IGRC is the International Development Research Center. It's a Canadian-based organization. FIRE is the Fund for Internet Research and Education. It's administered by African, the people that register domain names and stuff within African. Yes, that's the people that do that, yes. Then the Cyber Stewards is a network. Like I mentioned earlier, we chart initiatives and promote dialogue and interaction between organizations that do the same. So Cyber Stewards is a network of organizations based in different parts of the world, and they do what we're doing. They promote cybersecurity, they promote freedom of expression online. That network has researchers, advocates, academia, and a lot of people, but all based in different countries and continents. And what we benefit from them is that they give us perspectives. So I can mention what happens in Uganda, and then we're able to compare with what happens in Jordan, for instance, because we have that network of people, the cyber stewards who have a presence in Jordan or Brazil. Brazil also has quite terrible online freedom history. So that kind of comparative analysis we benefit from through that network. Then, unfortunately, actually, there's a logo missing there. The technical capacity that I mentioned earlier is made possible by the University of Toronto. They have an outfit called the Citizen Lab, which is a small entity in their School of Global Affairs. So they have the technical capacity to test when incidents happen, when sensitive incidents happen. They have a tool called Arctato and then a Raspberry Pi. I don't know how they work, but all I know is they can test. If I told them that Google is blocked in Uganda, they are able to test, and I'm also able to test on this end and give you a comparative analysis in the sense that if Google is available in Canada, of course we are available in Canada. So if there is a disparity in the 2 tests between what I do here and what I do and what they do in Canada, that shows whether or not the surveillance is happening or not. So that's Citizen Lab at the Monk School of Global Affairs in the University of Toronto. Paradigm Initiative are our partners in Nigeria. They ICT for Development outfit as well, but they've got online freedoms as a new thematic area. Then lastly, another partner who is not mentioned there is the Kenya Human Rights Commission. They're advocates of human rights in Kenya, and they are our partner on the ground. So that's the only other logo missing there. But those are the people that are making what I'm saying possible. So we are not just that, but reach out quite far away. So in terms of getting in touch or finding out more, that's the contact information. The photo is live, there's a contact form on there. Whatever is produced on OpenNet will be reproduced on CIPESA. because as coordinator, I'll try and make sure that information is available across the platforms. And Lilia will share it on Facebook and Twitter where she's got permission to do so. And I want to take Witness as a partner, and all of you, I hope, like, you know, you amplify this message and you're the people that take it on so massive where I hope I was fast enough. And yeah, that's it. I'm done.
Thank you, Ashin.
Any questions particularly to this? The rest, I think
We're going to
we're
defer the questions until the last presentation so that we shall have one more discussion. Next is Mr. Wokunda Sibagala.
My name is Wokunda Sibagala. I've been introduced. I should say this is my first public appearance since I retired from the Ministry of Finance. I'd kept silent because I wanted really to have some rest. And I felt really that 3 months down the road, really, I think it's enough for me now to get back and start doing work. Yeah, but I should really congratulate CIPESA for having put this, and then for them to really have this kind of mailing. It's really very useful to our work. Also to touch base and see who does what and where, but also see whether there is anything we need to share. And then moving forward as groups working around internet freedoms. My role is really to introduce to you the Unwanted Witness, which is here to defend digital rights, also join others on internet freedoms, but at the same time we promote the use of modern technologies to amplify voices and then change lives. So that way, I think the most important thing here is I've been requested really to talk about majorly that area which really directly links with this kind of today's meeting, which of course the digital rights. You may have realized that in Africa, especially Uganda, there is penetration of digital tools and the use of digital in Africa. Particularly in Uganda, we have got really mobile phones, many mobile phones than any other neighboring countries. But at the same time, we also use computers, which of course, which tools have brought really new issues and then seem to be changing the landscape when it comes to communication. That way, we felt that anything to do with looking at the penetration of the digital systems, there are opportunities, challenges, and threats really associated with that. And mobile phones being penetration in Africa, especially Uganda, being really on the high speed or whatever speed, we realize that we need to do what we call, how do we put the online and offline together. When you talk about digital rights, internet freedoms, even offline freedoms should be the same. When you talk about do not trespass on my land, don't really trespass anywhere, okay, in my house, wherever. Talking about online, they're saying, please respect my privacy, like Ashina was saying. So you find that the two really must work or walk along the other. So you cannot defend offline freedoms and then leave the online freedoms. I don't know how many of you know about the surveillance in Uganda. What I can tell you is that there is secret surveillance in Uganda, and this secret surveillance is done on citizens. They are spying on citizens without their notice. It happened. It has been happening for the last 10 years. Some of you worked in the media. You have heard stories where, or you have documented cases where the government goes to private telecommunication companies, asks for printouts,
yeah,
and they use that against you.
Yeah.
Without your notice. I don't know how many of you who go to hospitals you volunteer a lot of information, and that information is kept by a doctor, which doctor can reveal that information to someone interested.
Yeah.
That brings us down to the SIM card registration, which of course I talked about briefly when I was at HRNJ, but I realized really it was, I think, too far away from what University of Uganda was supposed to be doing. But now we find it really well accommodated in the kind of work we're doing. When we talk about digital rights, for the last 3 years we have seen more than 5 legislations coming in place. And these legislations talk about the Computer Misuse Act, talk about Electronic Citizen Act, talk about Intersectional Communications Act, talk about the Uganda Communication Regulatory Authority. I don't know how many of you participated in the legal process, in the formulation of these laws. Anyone here who participated in the formulation of these laws? Did you participate in all which one did you participate in? Computer misuse?
That was just commenting and formulation, but of course this is the formulation.
And during the drafting?
After the drafting.
Then you came to what stage?
After the drafting, there was a stage of commenting.
So at the committee?
No.
Committee, where?
Society.
The stakeholders meetings. Okay, and that when the law came out, did you verify whether your comments or inputs was considered?
I did.
How did it come? My colleague there, which process were you involved in?
I can't say I was involved in the drafting process of my work. I was, as a stakeholder, I was consulted, and through different forums. So you have the iNetwork, which did publish and requested people to comment. And I remember we had quite an interesting debate online, where the members of the ICT committee are members of the iNetwork. The same fraternity went to Parliament. I didn't go to Parliament, but I now was represented. And looking at the law to that extent, you get a feel. You can't have comments and comments and proposals and proposals. The fact is that we were consulted, and I know even when we were drafting the regulations to make those laws come into effect, NITA did invite stakeholders. It was an open, with people invited to participate. The difference is whether we are implementing them to the letter.
But those proposals you made during the consultative process, were they captured, and were they reflected in the law, in the final act?
To that extent, yes, I would say. If you look at the Computer Misuse Act, there are components that we thought were archaic as the IT fraternity, and those were reviewed and were reflected in the laws. If you go to the cyber laws, the same thing. And the stages are there. One thing is, there are always opportunities. It is the initiative to go ahead and use those opportunities that I've also found quite interesting. When they post it on iNetwork and people are supposed to comment, you'll see like 2 or 3, 4, 5 people that are going to comment. At that time I was working in Nakasero, and the College of Computing was requested to formally make a submission as academicians. But it became very difficult to get these professors in one location to read the bill and make comments. And so independent academics made their submissions. So that's my other comment. I see lots of things posted, regulatory component on iNetwork on different forums. But how many people read, internalize, and then make the comment? So from an engagement perspective, I think there is an effort to engage us. From us being responsible enough to read, internalize, we just pick one's comment and look at what Lillian has said and then make a lot of assumptions and make my own comment, and what Lillian would have been out of context. I'm not even ready.
Thank you so much. Yes, Lillian.
I think I would like to share that some of the comments or input we put, especially the Interception for Communications Act, where they are given, where the minister had all powers to go and enter, get those components. I think that part was removed because recommendations came that they had to go and get support from there rather than giving all the powers to the minister. So I think that is one of the things, the stakeholder engagement that was taken on, and it was the most contentious issue.
Yeah, you can see, colleagues who are here, that the processes really do not really, you don't have to be at the paid user. I mean, they're far away. You need to be really, the process as participatory as it has always been. My colleague said we find 2-3 people commenting or coming out when really we require really to make input into this. I have also realized that there is illiteracy, digital literacy in Uganda.
Yeah.
Which is really very, very common. Not only actually amongst ourselves, but even the legislators. They don't know what really they are enacting about. They don't know really these issues because they are politicians and they are in parliament because they've been requested from that. Having talked about really the laws and then the process actually, my colleagues. By that time I was at Human Rights for Journalists. But now I've learned quite a lot from CIPESA and others, the kind of work that has been done. We have also realized, even when you look at the laws that exist in Uganda, one, they do exist, but they are all looking at control. Controlling on how the government must control you on how to use these digital platforms. The laws we have do not guarantee the protection of our privacy, do not protect citizens' data. This has been an argument I was making a few months ago, that you cannot talk about a legal framework which do not guide one. When you introduce the SIM card registration, which do not guide on collection, on storage, and access. And I say, Ugandans who have surrendered their information, they are more prone to attacks than before. They are endangered species. Because by the time you provide your address, home address, workplace address, your next of kin, your photograph, sijui what, and all the phones, if someone is hunting you down, not only government, if you have an enemy, that person can go to any of the telecommunication companies because the information they have collected has remained in the hands of, in their hands. Companies that have come to do business in Uganda. And that makes it more worse, that we happen to have more enemies than before. Our information is out there, it's not protected. And we're saying that for us to be secure, for us to guarantee our security online, we must have a law to protect our data. Yes, there must be a collection center where all the information collected, government is supposed to be protecting it, like it happens in other countries. But now you go to UTL, you go to, if you know Sebagala is subscribed to Airtel, you can go to Airtel and then get information. Unlike in other countries where such a collection center, there are procedures that if you want to access my data, you don't have to go to high court and then guess why you want to access my information. In Uganda, it's not the case. We've had cases of people being killed. These cases have gone without being investigated. We don't know how these attacks have come. So these are some of the things that we've been talking about and say, wait a minute, if you talk about digital rights, we must have a framework which is fully-fledged, self-contained. You need to control me, but there must be really safeguards. We also happen to have that in Uganda, the laws we have, there is no control over using of spy technologies. The laws we have do not talk about it. So the government of Uganda can import any surveillance equipment here and surveil it. We don't have any law as far as that is concerned. But they continue to manufacture. I'm happy to announce that the UN passed a resolution on surveillance, which of course it has been a struggle. Brazil and Germany initiated it. It was passed 2 days ago. I'm happy. At least this resolution, we can use that way to engage our different governments. But that's not enough. When we talk about protection of data, not only in Uganda, but at the regional level, ECOWAS, they have got a regional law on data protection. East Africa, we do not have it. I think that is CIPESA's area. Okay? So we need to engage that we need a regional law to protect, to safeguard our data. It must be applicable in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Rwanda, Uganda, and then we, the local groups at national level, we can work with our governments to have national laws. Otherwise, if you do not that, I'm telling you all our efforts are going to be wasted. Let me give you scenarios. There are two companies, I will not name where they are coming from, but one is here for data, another one is here for voice. These companies do not require a permission from telecommunication companies to surveil on any. They use more than, actually, in just 1 minute, they can surveil on more than 100,000 subscribers. It is in Uganda. And do not really allow yourself that even when you encrypt, when you don't know the deeper understanding of these issues, I think your efforts are going to be wasted. I don't know how much information really being put on our social platforms, Facebook and others. How do you guarantee that? How much information do you volunteer? People talk about their new relationships on Facebook. They talk about change of location, their homes on Facebook. You know, these are things, of course, we have to be cautious about. With this increasing surveillance, because it has happened in developed democracies, becomes really an issue. Then the other thing, of course, which of course we need to be very concerned about, is when the government, for instance, this year, Ugandan government made a request to Facebook to provide some details about a Facebook user. If the government of Uganda can do that, and then you provide everything, thank God actually the request was not granted. But if Facebook had granted that, you see? So all this, of course, is an eye-opener to all of us. What are we intending to do? I don't want to waste a lot of time. What are we intending to do? One, the animal witness, we are investigating the surveillance equipment in Uganda. We are undertaking research with our partners on digital safety and security. But at the same time, we are looking at also analyzing how far the information the government of Uganda uses, collects during surveillance, they use it, and for what purpose. Which, of course, can help us to inform citizens about what they're doing with the information they have collected. I've been informed about, I don't know who's coming from Makere University, ICT partner. Do you have someone here? No one. I am told there are over 150 youth from that department who have been recruited. And they are being taken for training, digital training, during elections. There is a son-in-law who is heading that campaign. So you have to be careful. Secondly, there is a storage, there is a fully-fledged center in Mbuya, where all your computers, your phones that have been stolen, where they are taken. They unlock them, they check everything. Okay? So when we talk about using a computer, do you know how to encrypt it? If you're using a mobile phone, iPhone, these smartphones, how often do you encrypt them? When you're communicating? What means are you using to communicate? Okay? And if we are not careful, I'm telling you, people are listening to our private conversations. Even when really you're lobbying for an outing, someone is there really, you know. Even when you're talking to Ashina, you know, Ashina Munange, I'm poor, can you? People know, oh, okay, Sevakara is broke, eh? You get what I'm saying? So these are the issues, of course, we need to be very careful about. So we're looking forward really to work with CIPESA and other colleagues who have been really in this sector to ensure that we add value to what has been happening. If there is any question, I'll be able, but I don't want really to. But the other thing is we'll be offering is small support to victims. You know, if someone has been attacked online and their privacy, not only online but even their homes have been invaded, then those are things, of course, emergencies we'll be looking into. If there is any, please you can inform us or you can inform CIPESA that can come to us to see how we can help and move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff. We shall defer again the questions and the reactions to it. We won't have a wholesome discussion at the end. Next is Ms. Lillian. She's a woman of many hats, like the song "The Coat of Many Colors." Current president of the Uganda Society of Uganda, and she's another hat is at CIPESA, and another hat.
Yes, I saw his Internet Society, but I'm here in the capacity of policy officer at CIPESA. Okay, we wanted to make this session as participatory as possible, and the small pieces of paper, I think orange was for threads. No. Pink was for threads, where we invited you to list 3 threads that you feel are targeting internet rights, internet freedoms, and the pink one, no, the orange one was for challenges, and green was for strategies or measures how we can do this. But I don't know if there are questions to the previous 2 presentations about the OpenNet initiative, the website. Whether something was not clear or anything directed to Jofre? No?
Yes, please. I got one. Thank you very much. Mine is directed to Mr. Sewaga. I don't know whether he's still around. I appreciate your efforts. I will share with you that I lived in a European country for 2 years, and that's why I got a passion for internet. 1, they give you a personal identification number, and if you are caught in a wrong, they type it in and they get everything about you, including your credit card. 2, when you are giving us an advice on why we should either surrender information or not, you should really come out with credible, evidence or information from wherever you are comparing with. He's from the West. He will tell you that every corner of their buildings has cameras. And doesn't matter whether you are in a loo or where, it's up to them. They're only right there that be aware of the camera. That's what they do. What you do, what you don't do, all these either terrorism cases or whatever, we always see, like the Boston bombing. We saw the guy carrying the caveira on the surveillance camera from the shop where he passed. Why are you scared of talking to Ashna if you are just saying hi? Because if you are, it is always only those who have criminal mind that they fear about a criminal. You know this saying in Uganda that chenkola banange sagala bachinkole. Because you know that it is bad, a thief actually knows how to protect his house. Because he knows that they will pass here, they will break here, so I don't want to be what? Stolen from. So I think when you are advising us, or I may only share, because when they say registering SIM cards, I have 3. Data, 2 data, 1 actually 4, and 2 voice. I ran there, I saw you on WBS, but I couldn't comment anything. Please, teach Ugandans on how to be trustworthy. On my Facebook page, I even have my website there. But whenever I get a new friend, I tell them, when I say, when I get you, I want to chat with you and know you. So they ask me, what do you do? But I discovered the problem. The problem is most of the people access Facebook from the mobile phone, so they can't see a website or get more information. But all my information is on the internet. I do not steal. I don't cheat from people. I don't care when you get my information. Even my videos for my lectures are on the internet. So that's also as citizens, because these Europeans and Americans are well behaved because they know every time they are being seen, and it is official. All I do on my hotel, I put there, be aware of the camera. So I think we should also know that we need to be good at the same time.
Thank you. I think what he's saying is if you have nothing to hide, why should you
care?
Why should you care? But if I always have this example, sorry, I'll come to you, Thomas. I always have this example. I'm having a fight or an argument with my partner in my house, okay? It is just the two of us, but until I involve probably the person in the next bedroom, no one will know what's happening. So why should I have someone snooping on my privacy? Because of my interactions on email.
No, he can kill you.
He can kill me.
Yes, this guy may strangle you and kill you.
Anyone. Why should I have someone snooping around?
You wanna die? Someone can help you, maybe.
It's just
it's a joke. Maybe I would like to answer what the question from Mr. Sebaga. Mr. Sebaga mentioned that the government has the registration of SIM cards, but the problem is not the registration, the problem is the process. Who is collecting the data, who is keeping the data, who will access the data. The same situation is surveillance. I don't think it's bad to monitor people, but the challenge is who is at the monitor. We have 7 cameras in a hotel room. Who is the person on the monitor? You don't know who is doing it. There is no legislation on how this information that's being captured is going to be handled. This is someone, I hire a hotel room for my own private personal work. And then the person who is at the monitor is capturing what I'm doing. And the next thing, I find myself in red paper. You see? It's not that it's bad to monitor what I'm doing, but what's the use of the information and who is controlling the information? Government is not a person. Government is a group of people. If, say, Muya is monitoring us, there is someone actually who is doing the monitoring. Now, I might have a graduate, Sebaga, and I use the opportunity of working in government, monitoring them, and I just use the resources to monitor Sebaga for my personal business, not for government or country business. So I think the challenge is not monitoring or surveilling people, but the challenge is who does it, how is it done, how is it controlled.
Thank you. You wanted to say something? Please, let's have one conversation, because here is the time we want to hear your views, how we can capture these things and be able to probably draw advocacy lines or engagement lines with the different stakeholders, government, ISPs, and the rest. So please, try to, let's have one conversation, please.
Yeah, so I also wanted to respond to your statement there, that exactly as you were saying, like, if I have nothing to hide, why should I really care? That is exactly the problem. I think somebody should write that, I don't know. But people ignorant. You know that?
Yes, ignorance.
So because that is the fundamental thing we are trying to fight here, is like, there is the issue of privacy, right? Like, as a human being, you have privacy. Simple as that. Even if you have nothing to hide, you want your privacy. See, I don't know, what was the example just now was like, you don't want your pictures, those are your things, you have nothing to hide, but still, like, you don't want to put a camera in your shower, right? You don't want the government to look in your shower, like, that kind of thing. So that is privacy. And number 2 is, like, there's a difference between ethics and freedom, right? So I think it's good to have ethics, like, okay, don't say anything that comes to your mind, because they might, you actually offend people, Just your freedom is limited to other people's freedom. That's true. But you don't want the government or anybody to go and tell you, like, okay, you should not be doing this, because that is precisely going against the freedom itself. So it should be like everybody should come up with their own standards, and they should be allowed to do, that's the freedom. And the last thing is for my friend, I like your talk, he was very enlightening. Sebaga, yeah. I think the thing, one is, I don't know, but I'm just making a statement, but I don't think you can also trust Facebook if they say that they have 2 requests and they didn't agree, right? Okay, so maybe they get it. Who are you to know, right? Or it might have been like 20 requests and they tell you like only 2, right? So, because at the end of the day, those are still private corporations, and you already know that they really comply with the NSA requests, right? So, how are you judging that the 2 requests is really 2? That's one. And the second one is I think that it's a bigger challenge for Africa anyway, is that we need legislation for data protection. But on top of that, we also need to like house it somewhere in Africa as well. Because you might have all the good laws saying like nobody should be able, unless it's a court mandated order or those kind of things, but if it's stored in a cloud in Amsterdam or in New York, Chicago, they can always look at your data. And that would be even worse because that's like the actual foreign government who's like, okay, this guy is interesting, let's snoop in and find out who he is, what is he doing. So there's that kind of thing, like it needs to be like, I don't know. There's been talks about Cloud Africa, and I've seen it in South Africa, they are trying to make something, but it doesn't really work very nice yet. So. But there's hope.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lillian, and my colleagues who are here. My concern is an observation. Sebagara and the CIPESA, could you please target the youth from P5 senior 6, because the internet access to them is a bit hard, and they are good ambassadors. Once they know, then the whole community will know and the whole country will know. So could you please target from P5 senior 6? Thank you very much.
Could I just touch on that, on targeting youth and children? ISOC, Internet Society Uganda, has a project on promoting online safety for children. Right now it's still in pilot form, but the whole idea concept is to work with the Ministry of ICT, who are stakeholders, and the Ministry of Education, whereby the ministry comes in regard to their policies. Because I think on the Computer Misuse Act, there's an article that targets child pornography, cyberbullying. I don't know to what extent it goes there, but no. So I think that is where the ministry comes in. But involving education is ISOC intends to come up with a smart guide or user guide on simple tools on how children can use the likes of social media, Facebook, MySpace, and right now I think it's WhatsApp. I think WhatsApp is taking over Facebook because it's easier to use. It is absolutely free and faster because it comes on your, on your SMS. So that is something that is in the pipeline. Probably once it goes at a wider level, stakeholders will be able to know what's going on. But just I think something. For those who attended the Uganda Internet Governance Forum, we had Nita Yu attend, and I think the director